Okay, so let's finish part 3. So we're going to go through and talk about Africa, Japan, China, and then the gunpowder empires. All right, so big thing that's happening in Africa at this point, you have the Songhai Empire, which is over in West Africa. So they're still doing their thing. They're going to get involved in the Atlantic slave trade, and that's probably the biggest thing at this point that is happening in Africa. So you need to know the slave trade. Couple things you need to know about it. It's not Europeans that are going into the interior of Africa and getting slaves and then taking them to the West Coast to sell. It's other Africans. They are going and raiding villages and kidnapping people and then taking them to the coast to sell them to Europeans in exchange for, guns and alcohol and that kind of stuff. So the slave trade is going to increase violence among other African cultures. And I mentioned earlier, you're going to see a cultural diffusion into the Americas because you have African culture and religion and traditions that comes to the Americas, and starts blending with stuff that's already there. And then you're going to see a decrease in the population of West Africa, and then that population pretty much is transferring over to the Americas. Is there a way I can undo that stuff? I don't think so. Oh, there we go. Okay. So that's, like I said, that's pretty much it that's going on in Africa. As far as what you need to know for Japan, so over in East Asia, you have the Tokugawa shogunate. This is the one thing that's going on in Japan. The Tokugawa go from the previous shogunates, and they create a more centralized government. So they're going to unify Japan. Yes, they still have feudalism. So you still have like the shogun and the daimos and your samurai. But instead of having like all these different warlords vying for power and controlling different provinces in Japan, you actually just have one ruler. So like I said, it's more centralized. For the fact that they were able to unify, that's what's going to cause Japan to kind of close themselves off to foreign influence during this period, because they don't want Christianity coming in. They have Shintoism and Neo-Confucianism that have been pretty much well established, and so they want to keep all of their traditions. So they're going to close themselves off to foreign influence, except for the Dutch, who are allowed to come in and trade every once in a while. All right. The Ming are carrying over from the last period. We had Zheng He and his voyages, and a couple things besides Zheng He that the Ming are known for is rebuilding the Great Wall and kind of reinforcing it to help keep the Mongols out, and then to also keep the Manchus out, which that doesn't work because they come and invade anyway. But both the Ming and the Qing are going to reinforce Confucian beliefs. China, too, is going to benefit from the new crops from the Americas because that's also going to help with their population. It's going to allow their population to boom. And then, like I said, the Manchus, who are from the region of Manchuria, so north of China, come in and invade and set up the Qing dynasty. So you have a small minority of people who are ruling over a different ethnicity of China. The Manchus don't like the Chinese. They are very racist and discriminatory towards them with their policies. And we're going to kind of see the same things later on with other empires. Okay, so your gunpowder empires, which are the Ottomans, the Mughals, and the Safavids. Some things to know about all three of these empires. They are all descendants from Turkish nomads. They are all using the latest gunpowder and military technology to go and conquer different regions and establish their control, which is why they're called gunpowder empires. They're all using bureaucracies. They all have absolute rulers who have a very superior view of themselves. They're all Islamic. They are all going to be semi-tolerant of other religions so long as you pay a tax. They're just all looking at things a little bit differently. So I mentioned earlier with the Mughals, who are in India, and they are an Islamic minority ruling over a Hindu majority. So that does create problems for them. The highlight of their rule is under Akbar the Great, who was very, very religiously tolerant. And it didn't really bother him what religion people were. But then after his rule, the Mughal rulers are going to start forcing people to convert to Islam. You get the Taj Mahal built during the Mughals, but then you also start to see British influence in the mid 1600s, and then that's going to continue through period 5. Um, the Ottomans, they really come into play in this period when they capture Constantinople in 1453. One of their most important rulers was Suleiman the Magnificent. Other things to know about the Ottomans is they're practicing the Devshirme, where you have the Janissaries, which are the little Christian boys that were taken from their families and turned into soldiers. The Ottomans reach their height under Suleiman, and then they're just going to slowly start declining from then on out. You have religious differences between the Ottomans and the Safavids, which is going to kind of culminate at the Battle of Chaldiran. You have the Safavids who were practiced Twelver Shiism, and then the Ottomans who were Sunni, and they both thought that the others were sending in spies to come and like infiltrate and like subvert the other one's religion. And so ultimately they just, as they are both expanding, they get into a fight. And that's where the Ottomans bring guns, and the Safavids, because of their religion, are wanting to be honorable, and they're only fighting with swords. And so they end up getting defeated. And then so the Safavids are going to continue until the mid 1700s. The Ottomans are going to continue all the way until after World War II. So they're a very big continuity. But this, like I said, is kind of the height of the gunpowder empires. They're controlling all the trade. They're, again, helping to spread Islam. And so, like I said, that's kind of the extent of what's going on at this point. Southeast Asia, they are down here, and their main contribution at this point is they are serving as centers of trade. You have the Portuguese, the Spanish, and the Dutch, who are all using Southeast Asia to set up different trading posts. And like pretty much all trade in the Indian Ocean region is still going through Southeast Asia. So you have like this big melting pot of religions and cultures and all this other stuff. And so that's the role they're playing now. Period 4 is it's pretty straightforward. It's not as complicated as period 5, which is what we're going to get into next week. So good luck on your test tomorrow, guys.